when your hair grows back. So I know you're wondering, oh, happy to have you here as well. I know you're wondering, what's this about now? Well, we'll be getting into that. I just want to say warm welcome to everyone on the call. Thank you so much. This session is being recorded and I'm going to put it up on our YouTube page and I'm going to post it as well. Also, in my bio, I've put in a contact details form. So if you haven't filled that, please fill it out so that you can get our newsletters and updates and general interesting, uplifting gist. So when your hair grows back is a session on restoration and renewal. And the inspiration for that came when I was reading the story of Samson. So Judges chapter 16. Anyway, the story of Samson is a number of chapters, but where I picked that out was verse 16, chapter 16, verse 22, where it says, "But before long, his hair began to grow back." So we already know the story of Samson, but for those of us that don't know, Samson was a judge, and he was a promised child. So by the time before his mother was conceived of him, an angel appeared to her and told her he was going to save the children of Israel from the Philistines, and that God will use him to smite them, but his hair will have to be grown out, never to be cut, and he would have to stay away from strong drink. So that's just the background. And Samson went on to live a life of supernatural strength, physical strength, and he got into trouble. So he got distracted, made the wrong friends, made a lot of mistakes, loved the wrong women, and that eventually led to his hair being shaved off. And for what his hair signified and symbolized was the strength that he carried. So as soon as the hair was taken away from him, he became a regular guy with regular strength, and they gouged out his eyes and put him in prison, with all the other people. So that's just a general background on where his hair got shaved off. But before long, his hair began to grow back. And as his hair began to grow back, his strength began to return. And then at the final stage of his life, he reached out to God and asked for God to give him back his strength, full strength, that he might, hurt the Philistines and die with them. So this is just a general story of Samson. I just want us to have that picture. If you want to read more about it, go to the Bible, Judges chapter 16, or start from 14 if you want a whole gist. Now, to our session, many of us might have experienced times in our lives when, we went through like a major setback or several setbacks, and it just felt like your hair was shaved off. This is excluding, of course, a voluntary big chop or, someone that voluntarily wears short hair. It's not particularly in the length, but in the quality and the health of the hair. And sometimes it might actually, physically fall off, really, because of the hardships that we might face. And it's not an easy time to live in. It's not an easy experience to have. Apart from the fact that most of us love our hair, hair symbolizes so many different things. And I'm just going to take us through a very brief walk through history, what hair symbolizes, what over time, and what it is now. And then I'll tie us back to our experience of restoration and renewal. So throughout history, hair has held significant symbolic meaning in both ancient and modern cultures. And this includes its length, this includes its growth, and even includes it being chopped off like as a whole act. So it's connected to strength and power, like in the case of Samson. And even, over here in the West, in the past, Celtic warriors had really long hair. And this long hair signified their vigor and leadership. We have so many things across different cultures. In ancient Korea, hair was, even the way you wore your hair could actually, tell people about your class in society and so many things. And for some cultures as well, they go through a process where they use their hair as sacrifice. I personally have gone through a season where I just didn't feel like I wanted anyone to touch my hair. So it's not like it was a sacrifice in terms of cutting it off and putting it on an altar, but it was a time where I decided that I would just leave my hair alone just to focus on other aspects of my spiritual growth and spirituality. So hair could also be shaved off, in throughout history when people go through mourning or shame. This, of course, was in the ancient times and maybe still in some actual traditions, in Africa or Nigeria particularly. I do know that as a Nigerian, that sometimes some people, when they lose someone, they shave off their hair, not their head, please. So now let's go to the modern times. Our hair most times is what we use for to show our, like, many times, identity or personal expression. Sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes people are judged by their hair. I used to like this song a lot. I think, not even, Indiari's got this song, "I'm Not My Hair." And she really talks about different kinds of hair and how people are beyond their hair. But true, this is just coming from the historical symbolism of hair to the times that we live in today. And in the 1920s, people cutting their hair in shorter lengths, symbolized empowerment and freedom, because it's not, you can, the same "I'm not my hair" scenario. And then in the 1960s, people grew out their long hair, didn't cut it, as a way of rejecting conformity. So hair has really gone through an evolution, and hair does have meaning. And that's why sometimes, even when you're going through a hard time, or maybe before the hard time starts, you might actually have a dream where something happens to your hair, and then you find out that things start to happen to you in real life, or you find out that your hair grows back and things start to fix. So what we're going to go through is that this hair growth process, apart from the actual hair growing, it's the changes in a person's life that signifies that their hair has grown back, usually start internally and spiritually before we can actually see it. So apart from the hair can also get unhealthy. And hair being cut off, it might just be the health of the hair, and you just know that there's something more, like there's something more about this hair. I'm losing something. And as we see in the case of Samson, he did lose something, and it's not really different today. It's just that we're not going about using our hair for strength and other things, but it has a link. And many times also, I've talked about identity, I've talked about grief. Stress and trauma can also affect your hair. And oppression, people use that as a sign when they try to oppress other people, they shave off their hair and things like that, so to dehumanize others, and that's just really horrible. So now we've gone through hair and all that. This is not an exhaustive explanation, but I just wanted to give us a little bit of a background before I talk about when your hair grows back. So we've gone through when it's chopped off and unhealthy and all that. When your hair actually grows back, it signifies healing, restoration, and renewal. Your hair growing back symbolizes new beginnings after a difficult season. And I've talked about it coming from your dreams sometimes. You see it first, or you might not, somebody else might. So when it goes off, it's the negative, and when it grows, it's the positive. And I've reiterated that it doesn't have to do it. You can wear short, healthy, beautiful hair. I used to have short hair myself. And when it even comes to identity, I remember a lot of times people used to describe me as a person with short hair. So it was quite, I'm thinking of going back to my short hair, but that we're not talking about hairstyles now. So I need to stay on topic. So now I just want us to know that it doesn't matter how long that difficult situation has lasted for, or how long we might have walked in disobedience, misplaced trust, or distraction. Like in the case of Samson, it's not just Samson. I particularly can say when I went through a short hair season, in fact, several short hair seasons, it was clearly because of disobedience, because I was choosing to make my decisions outside of what God wanted me to do. And unfortunately, we cannot choose consequences. We can only choose our actions. So with that came the short hair season. So whatever it was that led us to the point of feeling like we were in a short hair season, it can grow back if we ask God. The restoration and the healing is available. So we must recognize as well when it has grown back, because if we're going back to the story of Samson, before long his hair began to grow back, but it wasn't immediately that he asked for strength to do the final and the greatest exploit that he ever did. So I want to imagine, did he try to go through a process of like thinking, wondering if it had actually happened, and a range of emotions that I'm going to dive into. But trying to think about it is that the renewals actually started happening before he realized that it had taken place and that he could leverage on that to defeat the Philistines in his final battle. So God's grace allows for restoration always, and we have to ask. Samson did ask. I'll get to the point where why did he just ask to kill them and die? He could have asked for more, but anyway, let me take it slowly. Renewed purpose is often followed by repentance and surrender to God. So in order for the hair to grow back, we're going to have to come to a point where we realize that we've walked in disobedience, or we've just made a mistake, or we've not just been aware, or something has happened that has led to that, and you just realize this is too much of a short hair season. I need my hair back. And it's like, God, I need you to do this for me. You need to surrender. And another thing is recognizing the restoration and walking in it, because many times the regrowth actually happens within before it becomes visible. It may look different from what you imagined, but we must recognize it and walk in it for it to manifest. So you might be wondering, well, what does it look like? If I can't see it physically, what does it actually look like? So I've put together some things. This is not an exhaustive list, but you notice when you find out yourself, your hair is grown back, you're working in your restorative season, you realize that your appetite for things have changed. There's a shift in mindset, and you realize that you might no longer define yourself by your past experiences. I actually wrote mistakes, but I'm not going to call them mistakes, because I learned that there are actually no mistakes. They are just better ways of doing things. And when you do something and it doesn't work out, or you have a bad experience, you now know not to do it in that particular way. So you notice that you no longer define yourself by those things. You feel lighter and happier, even if you actually can't see a change in your circumstance. Like, you can literally be flat broke on your last pound, and you're just, rainbows and sunshine happy. That's how one of the ways that you know that you're going through renewal already, even if you cannot see the manifestation of it. You find out that you no longer react from a place of pain, but you find yourself responding with wisdom and patience. Just a bit of an example. So I think that was yesterday, 2 days ago, Thursday. I had someone speak to me. I'll say condescendingly, like it was just a one-liner, and I'm thinking, why is this person, typing this? So I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to pray about it. This would not have been me before. I would have given them back to back, but I said, okay, let me just pray about it, and then the next thing, I just severed that connection, and the appointment that we were supposed to have, I canceled it. I archived the person. He wasn't the only one providing the service anyway. So in the past, I might have started thinking, oh, why did this person do this? Why did this person do this? And it might have annoyed me a bit more. But I realized that, I'm not going to give it my time. It's not worth it. I've set those boundaries and move on. And that was just that. So I realized that I didn't really react from a place of pain, and that was good, a win for me. Also, you have new habits, new actions. You begin to actually prepare for what you're believing for. So you show up different. You no longer force connections that drain you. And there is also a shift in who you attract. People who knew you in your short hair season, they might struggle to recognize this new version of you. And it's okay, So I'm going to go into the part of where the relationships come in. But what I'm going to say is I've listed a number of things and there will be many more. But you might be thinking, I don't feel all of these things, maybe one or two. Maybe some days are on, some days are off. That's perfectly fine. As far as you feel one, you can feel all. It's a gradual process and it builds on. You just need to be deliberate about it and you just need to believe that the restoration has happened and you will see the manifestation. For the fact that you're not all 100 in a day doesn't mean that your restoration has been reversed. Doesn't mean your hair has been chopped off again. Okay, so yeah, I was gonna say, if you've got any comments and experiences on what I'm talking about, just put them in the chat. I'll get to a point where I'll go through the chat so that I can interact with you a bit more. Now, I had an experience in November and I went for a retreat. Oh, it's such a nice sunny day. Feels like summer. Anyway, in November, I went for a retreat. And when I was going for that retreat, I told God that I want to be different. When I come back for this retreat, I want to hear that I'm different. So I don't know what I'm looking for, but I know that I need to be different by the time I come back. So I remember coming back and I was having a chat with my cousin and then she said, are you the one giving this answer? I actually cannot remember what the discussion was about, but I remember having like, oh, is wow. So initially I wanted to start thinking and explain, but I actually couldn't remember why I gave that new answer. And then I remembered what I prayed for when I was going for the retreat. And I was like, yes, that is the change that I want. That's the renewal that I want. So it might just be the one thing, but just take it one day at a time. As far as you've asked for it, as far as you believe for it, it is here. It just takes some time and some certain actions that you have to engage in for you to see and live in that complete and total restoration and renewal. So again, just because it's not showing outwardly, it doesn't mean that it isn't real. No. In fact, thinking of Samson, his hair grew before he regained his strength, and it's the same with us. It's internal first before it's external. So just bear that in mind because you might be thinking, nothing here around me has changed. But if one thing has changed, everything has changed. You just need to focus and you will see it and it will reveal itself with time. Now, when you realize that any of these traits are growing inside of you again, just harness it, focus, and keep yourself away from environments that will cause any kind of hair breakage. Yeah. Many of us know what that feels like, and it's not a good feeling when your hair just breaks unnecessarily. So, what am I referring to by hair breakage? Unfortunately, there are some people that would always refer to your short hair season and refuse to acknowledge your growth. That's the reality of life. Even Jesus faced it in the book of Mark, chapter 6. It says he could do no great works and he marveled at their unbelief, So in Nazareth. So it's not new when some people choose not to recognize that your hair has grown back in whatever season that they saw you in is over for good, and that's okay. Just a side note, honor is non-negotiable. As a woman of faith, we give honor and we receive honor. And if you find yourself in an environment where you're not being honored, you need to take a walk, shake the dust off your feet so that you don't start to question your growth. When people treat you like your past, there's every tendency for you to go back to that past. And that's not where we're going. We're not cutting our hair off anymore. Now, when you find yourself in that difficult situation, if you find it difficult, I mean, it's relative. You need to make sure that you separate yourself from the people that keep you stuck in the past. You need to protect this new you, this new growth as much as you can. And it could be those close to us. It could even be our own thoughts. It could be our own thoughts that don't want to move ahead. And that's where the renewal is a process. So, of course, you renew your mind with God's word. And referring back to Samson, like, if we stay in environments that remind us only of our downfall, we might struggle to embrace the renewal. So obviously he was in the Philistines camp amusing them. What kind of humiliation is that? And he might have thought about it in a way that, well, I believe he did. Like, there's, if I can just kill these people and just die. He didn't think that there was a way that he could be totally restored. So that's why he just asked for mini partial one. And that was also largely because of his environment. So our environment plays a huge role in this process. And for us, we need to make sure that is ideal so that you don't just hamper what is blossoming inside of you. Now, there are also, when I talked about separating yourself, and then I also said it could be our own thoughts. There are many dangers of marinating on your short hair moments when you keep going over, the experience, keep going over the experience. And yes, there's a time for reflection. Of course, you need to reflect and find out what brought you to that short hair season. And like I said earlier, I realized, like, for me, the seasons that I faced that were short hair seasons were just because I was choosing to do things my own way and not work according to God's plan. So I thought I was wiser. So you get what you get. So of course, there is time for reflection to realize why what happened, and then you walk in the renewed path that God has laid out for you. But that's different from going over it and beating yourself up. The dangers of that is that you won't recognize that your hair has grown back. And I heard, I was listening to a teaching yesterday, and it said the loudest voice you hear is your own voice. It doesn't matter anybody that tells you you're queen, you're all the nice things. If you're still hearing that voice that says you're not good enough, excuse me, you're not good enough, that's the loudest voice that you're going to hear. So this can come when you keep on marinating in experiences. I'm not disputing that experiences are painful and trauma. That's why, you need to actively seek for help to help you deal with whatever trauma that is lingering, or pain or stress or anything. But going over it, you won't, even if your things have changed, you're not going to recognize it. And looking at Samson's life, he might have chosen death because he couldn't imagine leading differently with his new reality. Now he had no eyes. So he was just like, oh, what am I going to do if I don't have this? And I'm sure a lot of us have been at that point where, you lose something and you're thinking, well, what am I going to be without this? Or people have known you a certain way, or they've known you with a certain person. And you start thinking, if this is out of the way, who am I going to be? But the truth is that thought, that's the very thing that holds us back from working in restoration. And many times it is rooted in pride, because you're trusting in either your abilities, because that was Samson was trusting in his strength. I mean, throughout, there was no time that Samson said he was interested in anything if not just to deal with people because they crossed his path. Even though God, it's difficult for you to walk outside of God's will, because God will make sure that you help you not to veer off too badly. But I mean, it could be, it is definitely rooted in pride. And it's that holds us back a lot, because now you're going over, oh, when I used to be, when I used to have. But God is not bothered about that. God is not bothered about that. God sees us the way he made us. So whether you go through short hair, long hair, whatever, God has seen you the way he made you, crowned with glory, a crown of splendor, and a royal diadem in his hand. So if you keep on marinating on when you removed your crown, or when you cast your pearls to pig, you're just going to be pigs. You're just going to be wasting your time. So that's something we really need to avoid. So it could be others around us. It could be our own very thoughts holding us down. And this is just imaginatively. And obviously, um, maybe if Samson held on and prayed a prayer for full restoration, like, okay, of course, I acknowledge, I shouldn't have lived this kind of life, because he was really wilding out there. He was out there. So he could have just said, I need to destroy these people and I want to judge the way you want me to judge. I want to see again. God will not have held anything back from him, because in as much as he was not, from what we read, of course, in the scriptures, he was not particularly in constant fellowship and, all that with God. He still, immediately he asked, God showed up and and helped him immediately for what he asked. So what he asked for, he got. So maybe if he had asked for something else, maybe the story would have been different today. Of course, we cannot talk about the judges without talking about Samson, and he did do exploits, but we can all agree that the end wasn't exactly the best. So if God showed up for him immediately, despite the fact that he was under the old covenant, then what about you? What about you? So what are you asking for? Are you asking for just a little thing just to breathe? Or are you asking for full restoration according to what's been written in the books about you, not according to what you think you should have? So in order for us to allow for restoration, we need to stop measuring ourselves by our pasts. I'm not going to say failures, because there are only better ways of doing things. But I'll say experiences, suffering, whatever it is, you need to stop that. God doesn't do pasts. He doesn't do that. So there's one of the pages I follow. I really like the way she teaches, and she said, when you find yourself worrying or thinking negatively, is worship to the devil. I was like, when you think about it that way, you're not going to want to do that. So as far as you've asked for it, I said before, as far as you asked for it, you have it. You need to recognize it to walk in it. And to walk in it, you need to focus only on what God is doing, not on your past, not on what people think. Stay in places that you're honored and valued, because you are. So that talks about guarding your environment, yeah. And be discerning to recognize those that are tied to the old version of you. If they are not willing to accept the new version of you, you need to move. Takes me to the story of, I don't know if Jen Sincero, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I read, I had all her books, and I did read some of them about changing your mindset about money, and how changing your mindset about money would change the way you interact with money and ultimately your financial position. And she talked about her journey, and she said she used to be this she's a writer, so she's always been a writer. She used to be this writer. She was just living, always needing $20 here and there, living out of her car, behind on her rent. Once in a while her dad would come through for her and things like that. And then when she made the decision that this is not going to be my life anymore, she enrolled in coaching courses, completely overhauled her lifestyle in terms of what she was putting in and what she was learning. And she said a lot of loved ones couldn't connect with couldn't connect with her anymore, because they were used to that version of her. So, the thing is that when people refuse to accept the new version of you, it doesn't mean that they are bad people. Many times people don't like change. Many times people don't like when things are different, because they're used to something. That's, so it's not new. But then, I mean, that's probably what Jesus must have gone through. They must have seen him growing up, chilling. All of a sudden, now you're healing the sick. Excuse you. There are people that are always going to resist that. And but we have to recognize that. If you recognize that there's somebody you love, or somebody that is resisting that, you need to give them that space, because it's going to hamper your growth. It's going to hamper that restoration. Your hair will not grow back. Maybe you might go out and have a wonderful day with this new life that you have, new way of thinking, new opportunities, and then you want to talk about it, and they'll be like, well, you're sleeping on my couch or something. Like, you just come back to that place, and we don't want that. We don't want that, because once we ask for it, we already have it. So anyway, Jen said that she lost a lot of friends and she made new ones, and she grew with some. And that is something that is never going to change when anybody goes through any kind of change. So I just want us to, understand this. If you face any kind of resistance, usually it's not coming from a bad place. It's just coming from people not readily accepting change. And that is normal. So we'll just have to, respectfully and lovingly let them know that you're no longer that person. And, it's either they accept it or you give them space. It's just what it is. So jokingly, a friend of mine yesterday was saying, "Oh, we really need to talk. You need to tell me some things because obviously this was not who I was before." And then I was like, "Well, I don't have anything to tell you." He said, "Oh no," he's like, "You owe me gist." I was like, "No, I don't owe you gist. My debt has been paid 2,000 years ago. I owe no one nothing but love." So I was like, "No, that's not what I mean," and everything. I was just like, "I don't know the all I knew before." New one. So take it or leave it. Obviously, we were just joking and it was all love, but there might be people that won't come from a loving place. They will literally come from a place to try to pull you down or mock you for your new stance and remind you that you were once either suffering or heartbroken or whatever the short hair moment was for you. So just be wary of that. It's not new. Respectfully and lovingly separate yourself and continue your growth. So, thinking about Samson now, because I'm always referring back to his story, because that was the inspiration behind this session. People probably never imagined him like as a regular guy with regular strength, and maybe he also struggled with their perception. So it's normal to think about that. So for some of us here, people might have never seen you prioritize your faith or chase your dreams or you know or even live differently, dress differently. I mean, do things that you think things that you're wanting to do now, things that you have an appetite for now because you've grown and because you're being restored to factory settings. um so it's normal to think that, but just always remember that the person's opinion and perception that matters the most is God's. And if there is any opinion that is contrary to his, you don't want to take that on. Yeah, I wouldn't anyway. So we're going to have to expect some relationships to shift. I've already said that. I think there's a lot talking about our relationships and friendships because that's one of the values on Jaws of Faith, which is like, friendships and faith-filled friendships and connections. And some friendships will fade, and new ones will start and the dynamics will change. So sometimes you might feel the tension of outgrowing a relationship. It's normal. It's normal in the process. You just focus on your growth and eventually you'll be happy that you did and everything will come together. What is best for your purpose in that realignment will come together. And now there is this is it, it's hard going through that process of separation and change in relationships and friendships, and sometimes we might feel so emotionally connected that we don't want to give some space, but there are dangers in that, just as there are dangers in marinating in our short hair moments. There are dangers in staying in connections that remind us of these moments or that want to take us back. I said earlier that there is definitely a difference between, reflecting on an experience and understanding what got you there so as not to go back there, or staying constantly in that experience and beating yourself up. So I'm talking about those ones that remind you, that make you have certain conversations that you don't want to, make you think in certain ways that you're no longer interested in. And if we do that, we're going to be holding back our growth, because when God restores you, when your hair grows back and God restores you, he restores you to, I said factory settings because the way he made you, not the way you think that you should be. And there's a certain version of you that has to emerge for you to be able to walk into that. And of course it includes all the pruning and the, I think if you haven't joined our Telegram channel for the ladies on the call, on the bio, on my Instagram bio, there is a link for that, we have the beauty battle to beauty series, where I talked about going through a process, and there's a time for separation, there's a time for all that. So if you refuse to go through the process, you're going to be stalling that restoration, and we're not going to be happy with that outcome. So going back to Samson, right? His story might have ended differently if he had decided to embrace a new way of leading instead of longing for his old strength. There is longing for the old is so crippling. There's a place of reminiscing, but doing it a little bit too much can be detrimental when you're going through a renewal and a restoration with God, when your hair has grown back. Now, you only receive from God. Better stop fiddling with this pen. Sorry. You only receive from God what you believe for. Faith sets the limit for what we receive. And in thinking about Samson's case, if Samson had said, give me back my eyes, I'm going to judge differently now, and give me back my strength to destroy these people, I believe that God would have done that for him, because the speed at which God responded to him when he just said, give me strength to kill these people and die with them. So he only got what he believed for. So you only really get what you believe for. And that's why I say we shouldn't put a limit on God to what we believe for. We shouldn't put a limit on God. In the book of Mark 9:23, it says that everything is possible for the one who believes. So the short hair moment might have lasted all your life, and you've come to the point where you say, okay, if God says my hair has grown back, if I've been restored, I walk in this restoration and I want it in my life, then you shouldn't be thinking, oh, just this. I mean, times can really be hard for us in the sense that when you go through something and then you just say, if I can just get a breather, I will be fine. The danger in making statements like that is because you put a cap on what God can do for you, and is as he hears you speak that he does. So you want to just say, I want all that God has in store for me and not some. So faith is very important in entering into this long hair season. And I'm just having a look. Beats with Zolzi, thanks for joining. Perfume Miniatures, Sa Majesté. And Ada, okay, thank you for joining. If you've got anything to put in the comments, or any experiences that you have, or anything that you learned in the session, please feel free to share. So and I'll read it out, and then we can interact a bit more. I just want to encourage us today to believe for full and total restoration. If you're asking God if you're going through a season in your life and you're coming out of that season and you're wanting to bounce back, you're wanting to experience that hair growth in the way that it has never happened before, you need to believe for all of it, not some of it, like Samson. All of it and more. And God says he will restore everything, every year that has been eaten up, everything and more. So asking for a little of what you've already been given is a bit of a short change. I must say it is. So 1 second. I just realized I never tried out any of these filters. Let's see. Nah, I don't really like it. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Now, how do you walk into this restoration? Somebody might be listening to this and you're wondering, oh well, I've gone through a lot, I don't know how that can really be restored, or I don't even know what it looks like to be restored, because it's just been so much storm in your life. So you're wondering, how can I experience this hair growth that this lady has been talking about? This is a simple thing. Easy, simple, ready. All you have to do is believe that Jesus died for you and that he has saved you from every sin. Believe that your sins are forgiven. Believe that he loves you, and you say it with your mouth and say it simply. I forgive me for all my sins, forgive me for all my mistakes. I want to walk in this restoration. I want to have a relationship with you. I want to experience you. I want to experience all these good things. I want to be able to ask for everything and more. I want to know what it's like to be restored to factory settings. I want to know what it's like to be everything that you've made me to be. You only have to believe that, and you have to say it with your mouth. And once you say this prayer, you will be able to ask for restoration and walk in it. It's not going to be withheld from you. You don't have to work for it. It's not because of what you've done or what you've not done. It's just because of who he is, and it's available when you ask. So I think that brings me to the end. I just want to encourage everyone on the call. If you check the link in my bio on Instagram, you will see the contact details form. Please put your details in so that you can receive our newsletters, and later on be added into our WhatsApp channel. And also you can join our Telegram group if you want to listen to past sessions. We've had sessions for a long time now, and many of them are super interesting and relating to actual experiences that we go through, and I share a lot of my own personal experience. So another thing I'm also going to say is that, Jaws of Faith is a community where we're learning together and growing together. I don't have it all figured out. No one does. We're all, growing. I am growing especially when I get feedback and comments from people and they narrate the experiences, and I share my experiences because I know that someone might be able to relate to them. And when you hear that, then we all grow together. So this is not me teaching at you or saying, I have all the answers. No. This is me saying that we are all on a journey, and we go faster in the journey when we share our faith. So I've got a post on my Instagram, and it's called the Faith Beyond Words. It's an initiative of Jaws of Faith, where you can, once you comment faith on that post, you receive a link into your inbox, and then you can send any questions that you have or any prayers that you want us to join you in. Just send it out. If you want us to keep in touch with you, that's literally open to everyone. So I want to encourage us to use that. This is just for us to build ourselves. One of the reasons why Jaws of Faith is very close to my heart is because I look at my own experience and I realize that if I had a community like this, maybe I wouldn't have had so many short hair moments. Yeah, so there's a lot of, if you're born Christian, you've already been hearing teachings and stuff like that, but sometimes you want somebody like you to talk to you about their experiences. Sometimes you want to see someone that looks like you, hear someone that sounds like you. Well, maybe not sounds, but you get my point. And if that's not just there and everybody comes off as perfect, then you kind of think, well, there's no way I can meet up with this, so why try? So that sense of community is very important, and it's also just a place for growth. So I don't want anyone to start feeling, oh well, what am I going to say? I'm still in my short hair moment. There is no one that has it all figured out, but everything that I've shared is not just for you, it's also for me. So I've only shared from my experiences and shared from what the Lord has revealed to me, and it's just for us to work on that. If you're a lady on the call, and you want to have, because I'm going to put in some journal prompts for personal reflection in the Telegram channel. So if you want to have access to that, you can join our Telegram channel. If that's a bit more personal and sometimes it's like open mic, so you can join the Telegram channel. You have that. I will send the journal prompts. I would encourage us to do a bit of a reflection, because sometimes it might not be glaring to you that you're going through a short hair moment. I mean, talking about my own experience, I'll say, like, professionally, it was all right. I thought everything was all right because I had a job and probably had some money. But then I was focusing on one aspect, not realizing that my hair was short in all the other aspects.
So it might be somebody here and you're thinking, oh, well, everything's fine. I don't have a short hair moment. That's where the reflection comes in. And you're starting to think, is whatever it is I'm doing, is it supposed to be as difficult as it is? What exactly is going on here? And then, you would get the insight and know how to balance. So like I said before, it doesn't matter how long the situation has lasted, it doesn't matter how far gone the person is, disobeying, doing your own thing, living your life on your own terms. It doesn't really matter as far as you're ready and you're like, I want to know what it's like to live like I was made to live. You just have to ask God and it will help you. I've put in, if you're just joining, I'm going to post this on my YouTube page so you can watch it again. But I put in a prayer before now that you can pray. And once you pray that prayer, you are qualified fully to access all the restoration, renewal, transformation, change, upliftment, anything that you desire to the way that God made you. He made you the way you were meant to be, glorious, a crown of splendor in his hand, not by your moments, not by your pain, not by your mistake. And then if you need to seek additional help to avoid reliving those moments, don't be afraid to. I personally use therapy, and a lot of people might think that it's they don't want to and everything, but as I can say from my experience that once you find the one that you can trust, so trusting your therapist and clicking with them on a professional level is definitely important. Once you can find that, and there are also free resources depending on the country where you're calling from, but I can speak for the UK. There is Mind and so many organizations I can't think of right now, but if you need that in order to get you out of the cycle of reliving those short hair moments, please get it, because there's so much in store and the future is where we're at right now. God is in the future, and so we have to meet up. So yes, on my bio is the link to our YouTube page. Please follow and subscribe on YouTube. I think once we're able to get up to 50 subscribers, we can go live on YouTube, because actually on YouTube is better because I don't all these notifications and stuff popping up is not going to be there, so you're going to be able to see better, I think. Well, we'll figure it out when we get there. And then the contact details form, and also I think that brings me to the end of the session. If anyone has any comment or anything, please feel free to pop them in, and then I'll read them out loud. If you have any word that you want to add, I'm happy to do that. In the meantime, I'll say a thank you to those that have just joined. Thank you so much. Thames Glitters, thank you for joining the call. The Rural Evangelist one, thank you for joining the call. Our Reverend Moses Okoro, thank you for joining the call. This is such an awesome time in God's presence. I'm going to put it on YouTube, so I know that you've missed so much, because we've had a good time learning about how to walk in renewal and restoration when your hair grows back. That's probably why I wore this hair. So thank you so much, everyone. This is bringing us to the end of this session. I appreciate you, I honor you, I love you so much, and I can't wait to see you next week. Please follow our Instagram page if you're not already following. I'll be posting throughout the week inspiration and motivation, and I also put up shorts on YouTube as well, just quick shorts. I did one yesterday about boundaries. This is after I told the story earlier on the call, for those of us just joining, about setting boundaries and all that, and it lifted me up so much, and I shared it with some other groups I'm part of, and a lot of people were happy with that. So if you haven't watched it, if you find yourself in a position where you're starting to do something that you're not comfortable with because you're worried about what people will say or what they won't say, that's a different topic now, but just listen to it, and I hope that you're inspired. So God bless you and have an amazing weekend. Bye bye.